slowly but surely, we're going to get online. There's a bit of some hiccups on the way, but in today's episode of the live stream, we're going to be talking about some leash walking training and some of the things that people commonly struggle with. And, you know, we always talk about being clear, consistent, and fair with our dogs. It's such an important element of your training. And some of your dogs may not be ready for really challenging walking training. We're going to tell you exactly how you can overcome some of these little hurdles along the way, as well as give your dog the best information possible. Now, we started off right at 7:30. Usually we're up and going much earlier than this, but let's get it right into the action. Let's not waste any time. I'm Ken Steepe.
I'm Kayl McCann.
Welcome back to McCann Dogs. So let's talk a little bit about some of the common challenges that our students might see, some of the things that people are working through when it comes to leash walking training. And we've had lots of episodes or videos lately talking specifically about leash walking training. And I know that for some people, you know, it makes sense when they see the training, but they are struggling to get to that point.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note too that, you know, taking your dog for a walk and it not going poorly and continuing to repeat that really doesn't help your walking. So until you train your dog how to walk properly on the leash, we highly suggest to people to not rehearse walking their dog poorly. And a lot of people have a bit of a heart attack when we say that, because they say, oh my gosh, like, what am I supposed to do with my dog if I can't take them for a walk? You know, we're big believers in exercising dogs and helping them to be you know, more well-mannered because they aren't quite as energetic, and we sort of take the steam off and keep them exercised and keep their mind busy and things like that. But it is really important to know that if you're walking your dog and it's going really badly, they're doing a lot of pulling, they're jumping on other dogs, or they're barking, or whatever they're doing that you don't love, if you don't know how to address that, or you haven't built enough value for walking with you on a loose leash, it's not the greatest idea to rehearse the behavior until you have some more training underneath your belt. So we wanted to make a live stream to give you guys ideas of what to do with your dogs when you're in the process of training them to walk and you just don't know what to do, because we need lots of ideas to take the steam off of our dogs, especially when they're young. For sure. And we have a bunch of tricks that we do with our own dogs and that we suggest to our students to do. So we thought we would share that with you today.
Yeah. And this is the kind of stuff, you know, people are always say things like, oh, you know, how do dog trainers always get great dogs? And, you know, how do dog trainers accomplish so much in such a short amount of time? Well, it's all about the information that you give them. I was having a great conversation with somebody today about how important timing is. Like, timing is crucial. And that's often where things going wrong, where the wheels fall off. Yeah.
So dogs learn within 1 second. It's something that we talk a lot about on our channel and on our live streams, you know, about how dogs learn and how we need to communicate so that they understand it. And we have to think outside of what a human thinks like.
Right.
Dogs learn within 1 second. So if they're rehearsing doing the wrong behavior for a really long period of time before we're addressing it, it can be really difficult to fix, especially when that unwanted behavior happens to also be a behavior that's really self-rewarding. And a self-rewarding behavior is something that our dogs do that they truly just find really fun. They don't need any positive reinforcement from us to think it's great. Pulling on the leash and getting to go somewhere like the park, or getting to be pulling their handler over to another dog, that's all really fun for them. And if they're rehearsing that, it can become much more challenging to fix at that point.
So something we always do, and I was just checking in with Lots of Links Luton. You guys know who Lots of Links Luton is? Well, he is Dan, the moderator man. And every week, if you've been here on the train station, you'll know that we love to go live to Dan. And we're going to set up the camera. I'll just set up the satellite feed here. Make sure that's one of the things I think that's working okay. But let's see what Dan's doing in his moderation station.
Moderation station.
Looking pretty sharp. Look at him.
Oh,
wow.
Look at that mustache.
Oh, and he's got the Movember mustache. And the most adorable Movember mustache I may have ever seen.
She looks so cute.
Now, Dan the moderator, man, Luton, is
That's quite the stash,
a
Dan.
moderator extraordinaire, but he's also working on a Movember thing. So he's raising
We
money.
have quite a few friends doing that this year.
Yeah, totally. So something that Dan is collecting money for and taking donations for is Movember. It's basically like men's health awareness kind of month. So prostate cancers, testicular cancers, suicide, all those kinds of things. That's what Movember really is. So I don't grow the cookie duster.
Yeah, where's your mustache?
Yeah,
hon?
I don't know. And you know what? I'm surrounded at work.
You're like
my other
7
work.
days too late.
Yeah, with firemen, and there's so many guys that have mustaches there, but not me. I don't know. I just I don't know if I'd be
You're
able to
more
grow
of a
one.
baby face kind of guy.
That's part of it. I want to look my age, which is 27.
That's not true.
So if you've been here before, one of my favorite parts, and I've forgotten it almost a couple times as we're rolling along here, but one of my favorite things to do is do a roll call. I want to know where you guys are watching us from here in the train station. I'd love to find out. And as I mention every week, I love going through some of the comments after and checking in and seeing like places I've never heard of, which has been really, really cool. But I know we have lots of friends here from the UK, which is cool. I wonder if somebody needs to go out. Do you hear that?
Yeah.
Let me just let those guys out really quick. It's been so cold here lately. I don't know what it's like where you are, but boy, oh boy, it's been really cold. So it's changed the way that we have to do things with our dogs. As we are look at all these. So I see people joining us. Puerto Rico is the island engineer. Jennifer from California. Alicia from South Jersey. Let's see. Maria from Maryland. I've got Darren from Maine. So it might be colder where you are, Darren. And Carol, I'm sure it's colder in Gander, Newfoundland. I see Nicole from Colonial Beach. Jody Adams from Arizona. I've heard nothing but good things about Arizona, Jody. I have friends that
I heard it's really warm
have traveled there. Yeah. But Leah from Milton, welcome, not too far away. Michael from Monroe, Fredericton, New Brunswick. Oh boy, it's starting to go really fast now. Pat from Burlington, I know Pat's a student. Melinda from Durham, Ms. Philly G from Philadelphia, PA, seems appropriate. Mary from Virginia, San Antonio, Texas. Shakila761.
Mama Lioness says, I need one of those shirts.
Yeah, you can actually get them.
They're so soft, guys.
Yeah, there is a link. We actually have the Team T available for you guys now here on the live stream. I should have put a link, I hope, in the description below. So just check the description below, Mama Linus, so you can check that out.
Scotland.
I see somebody, Mayan Keys from Hawaii.
Ooh.
Yeah, we were in Hawaii not that long ago.
We were. We just got married in Hawaii like 5 months ago.
Yeah.
6 months ago.
Yeah.
I should know this. In April.
April, yeah. However
many
ago
months
that
that
was.
is ago.
Well, look at this. Scotland, San Diego, California, the UK, London, Ontario. Oh, did you not take those guys out?
No.
No, okay. 8-week-old border collie. Okay, so the Netherlands. Somebody's joined us. IW is May from.
Ooh, I knew we were going to the Netherlands next
Bogota,
year.
Colombia. Very cool. Now, let's get down to business. So, as I mentioned, we do have that merch available. I want to start talking about next week. So, just to give you a quick notification, next week we would be doing. We're not going to have a train station. It's going to be our after hours agility show.
Yay.
Next Tuesday at 10 p.m. We're going to be running an after hours agility.
We can actually do it earlier. I don't know if you want to, but there's no classes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So okay. We'll see.
I would rather
we'll figure it out.
earlier,
Maybe
is what I'm trying to
9
tell
o'clock. I don't know. Let us know in the chat. What's a good time for you to come hang out with us? But it's going to be on our agility channel. We're setting up a specifically agility channel. So if you're an agility fan, check that out. Okay. Let's talk about walking training. And if you're teaching your dog to walk on a loose leash, you need to be consistent with them. And at this point, if you're looking for videos on YouTube about how to teach your dog to walk on a loose leash, you might not be ready for like full walking training sessions. So one of the things we always suggest to our students is to shorten the duration of those sessions. So make sure you're really precise about the walks that you go on with your dog. You want to talk about that a
like
little
to give you an idea, we would practice, like when we practice teaching our dogs how to walk on a leash, we would practice for like 5 or 6 minutes at a time, maybe 10 minutes. And typically when we're first starting out, we would start in a really, really low distracting environment. So I actually start this with my dogs when they're quite young, just to get them comfortable with the collar and a leash on. I take a little bit of food and I'll practice up and down the hallway, for example, and I'll close all of the doors in the hallway. We will put all other animals and beings away in the house so that there's no other distractions. It's just the dog and ourselves. And we'll practice, doing a little bit of luring and teaching teaching up and down the hallway where there's not much going on. And we do this because we get a very high success rate when we do this.
Yeah.
And our method of training is all about teaching the dog what we want them to do properly first, building the motivation, building the drive, building the understanding by ways of positive reinforcement, so that the dog sort of says, "Woo, I like walking at your left-hand side. Great things happen when we do this together." So I'm building value for doing that exercise. But it is so much easier to accomplish that when you're doing it in a less busy environment and also for short periods of time, and you're not competing against distractions, especially natural distractions like, what you might see out on a walk. There's all kinds of things that you'll run into that is going to take your dog's attention away from you. And until your dog feels that it's a valuable thing to walk with you, we don't suggest working around a lot of distractions.
Yeah.
We build into that, of course.
For
We want to
sure.
be able to do that.
For sure.
But that's not how we would start.
And, people often say like, oh, it's just not, I'm not getting the success that I wish I were. I go out and my dog's still bounding off the end of their leash. That's your fault. You're maybe over facing your dog. You may be introducing them into an environment that they're not ready for. Now we've given you lots of information about how to redirect on your leash and how to get a little bit more attention, but you need to set your dog up in a situation that's with an appropriate challenge. And this is how we get success faster.
Yeah.
Because we don't allow the dog to make many mistakes. They never have the opportunity.
They don't rehearse pulling and dragging us around for like 6 or 7 months before we say, all right, I'm going to teach you not to pull now. And you can do that. You might already be in that situation. Your dog might be 4 or 5 years old and they've been a terrible leash walker all of this time.
Totally.
And it's true, folks. You can teach an old dog new tricks.
Well,
but it just takes a lot longer. It's a little bit more of a challenge. The goal is to try to set the dog up to learn the correct things first. And then we would slowly build in things like distractions, but we would manage the distractions so that we wouldn't bombard or overface the dog. We would encourage or increase the distractions at a very gentle pace, a gentle rate, so that the dog is sort of learning to function, okay with those things happening.
And Julie Curtis, who we know another Julie Curtis.
We do know another Julie Curtis.
So Julie Curtis mentions she walks great inside, but loses it when I'm outside.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, for sure. And this is exactly what we're talking about, Julie, because outside in a mall and outside in your backyard and outside on your driveway and outside, maybe in a parking lot, parking garage, those are all outside, but you need to find that point where your dog can be successful, and not just the environment. Maybe it's the duration. Maybe you're hyper focused on helping your dog to be successful for the first 30, 40 feet. And you're like, well, this is going well. I can either pick up the pace, go a little farther. Maybe I don't need to reward as much. And you start to lose that focus. So I really want you to think about, what's that threshold? What's that point where my dog is going to make a mistake, and work up until that point, and then maybe push it. If you have lots of success one day, the next day you're out there, maybe you're going a little bit farther. Maybe you're going a little bit closer to some of those distractions, but you really do need to isolate an area, find an area that you, and even in a busy down city environment, I work as a firefighter in a pretty urban environment, and I can think of lots of places just off the top of my head that would be great to train a dog, even in like the chaos of a downtown city. You're trying to, number one, start off with focus, get a little bit of attention from your dog. And then as you're, introducing some of these greater challenges, you're more likely to start off on the right foot. Pun intended, I guess.
Or paw. Yeah. A couple other things that you can do to encourage success. Now, Steepe and D just asked a really good question about what to do. How would you get your dog tired if they aren't ready to walk on the leash? And we're actually going to...
That's exactly what we're
going to talk about in a few minutes. So we're going to get to that. So stick around. It's a very good question.
Welcome on over to the train station.
But another couple of things that you might consider to allow yourself to train in a more successful way is, number one, like especially if you have multiple dogs, don't try to teach two dogs to walk at the same time. Go with one dog. We have multiple dog households, and typically we'll walk our puppies totally separate so that it's just us and them, so that there's less going on.
Yep.
Consider the equipment that you walk your dog on. Do they have a well-fit collar? Are you using a leash that's, the good material that's helpful? We suggest a leather leash, those types of things. And then lastly, and probably most importantly, is what kind of motivator are you using? What are you using to reward your dog? And I'm constantly giving people advice on the treats that they're using, because they come and they're using kibble or milk bones, or like just really low Cheerios, boring treats. And if your dog sees a squirrel and then you like offer them a couple Cheerios to go for a walk, I would choose a squirrel if I was a dog.
Yeah, sure.
So you need to use high value rewards, such things as, leftover steak or chicken, hot dog wieners, cheese, cut up cheese, high value. We have a great recipe and video on tuna treats. You can make your own homemade tuna treats. My dogs are crazy about those.
Yeah.
Really easy. So something that's really, really high value. And before I've even gone on a walk, and we're going to show you this in a little bit, I've built value in my dog for working for me with food, so that's something they know how to do. So when we go outside and we have, I have my bait pouch and I have my leash and I have my treats, my dogs automatically sort of sit and they're like, okay, we're training. What are we doing? And I have that focus because I've conditioned them to do that already.
So Anthony, LA 310, asking for or against prong collars. Now, we have worked with all of the dog training pieces of equipment. And I'll tell you that I understand the thought behind the prong collar with the self-correction and all of those things, but it's not something we'd use in family dog obedience. It's not something that we'd use to train a dog to walk on a loose leash. And it's one of those, we prefer something like a gentle leader. And I'll tell you why, because the gentle leader is such a great way to get head control without any painful stimulus. It just gives you control of your dog's head. The best thing, and one of the greatest challenges that people face, is that transition away from being dependent on a piece of equipment like the prong collar, for example. That transition away needs to be like a progression. It needs to be gradual. And the gentle leader is great because you can slip the nose loop off and double clip it. Now you've got a flat buckle collar that's like much more narrow. So we don't like to see people using prong collars for, walking on leash training and all that kind of thing. It's about focusing on the work, getting your dog to like work a little harder in at your side. So that's sort of what our position is on that.
We believe that the least amount of correction is the best route, provided that it's affecting change, provided that it's working, because every single dog is different. It has nothing to do with breed. All breeds are absolutely trainable. We've had some like giant Rottweilers that look really mean and scary, but they're like the softest, sweetest, most gentle dog, and you hardly need to use any type of correction or adverse things with them, because they're sweet and they don't need a lot. We've had like little terriers and little Bichons that are like, they're really tough and they're got a mind of their own, and you have to be a little bit more firm with them. So, there isn't one way to train a dog. What you need to do is you need to look at the dog and you need to evaluate their personality and their temperament, and then you need to be clear and concise. And we find personally, because we've used the Gentle Leader product on thousands and thousands and thousands of dogs. We have 500 dogs per week come through our place. So we've seen all kinds of breeds and all over the place. But we've seen it work on huge dogs that are big, powerful, and strong. We've also used it on smaller dogs that maybe do a lot of sniffing, or they won't get their nose off the floor when you're trying to take them for a walk. So we find it really, really works for a lot of different breeds and situations. And we feel very comfortable using it because it's very powerful, but it's completely pain-free.
For sure. Now, a couple great questions from Kyle B. My dog knows a heel command. However, as soon as she gets a treat, she runs forward again. I call her back to heel, and over and over and over again. And this is not that uncommon of a thing. The dog the handler's making their way along, they reward their dog, and the dog's like, okay, I'm out of here. Let's talk a little bit about how to build some longevity into that position at your side.
Yeah, well, a couple of things you need to be careful of is it sounds like you're actually teaching your dog to go away and then come back for a treat because of the timing in which you're using the reward. So we want to make sure that we're balanced in our information. The dog needs to understand that when they leave your side that they're not allowed to do that. So we would suggest that you use a command like we use the command let's go. That's our walk at the side command. And we would then take our left hand on the leash and we would bump the dog back into position by using a couple, we call them pops on the leash, a couple leash corrections. And then once the dog's back at our side, we are very careful that we then release all the tension on the leash. So our dogs are not walking on a tight leash. And if our dog is able to maintain even just a few steps with a loose leash beside us, we would then, yes, and reward our dogs. So our dog is sort of learning that the rewards come because they're beside us on a loose leash, not because they're leaving. In addition to that, another really successful technique is to change direction. So when your dog barges forward and they go ahead of you, tell them let's go, or heel, or whatever command you're using. Again, we say let's go. Turn 180 degrees, so turn to the right if your dog's on the left, and go the opposite direction. So your dog sort of says, whoa, where are you going? And then when they turn and try to come back to your side, you can praise them. The last thing, it's not really the last thing, there's like way more I could say, but keeping it short, is that you want to make sure that your dog is actually walking at your side for a few moments before you're feeding. And this is where a lot of people go wrong. The dog moves out of position, the dog moves back, and people automatically reward. Well, dogs learn within 1 second. So your dog then says, oh, I leave, I come back, and you reward me. So watch your timing. If your dog leaves and you work on getting them back, we suggest you have your dog walk properly for a good 3-5 seconds before you reward, so that it's a little more clear to your dog that the reward is actually for maintaining position at the side. It's not for leaving and then coming back again. So I think you should assess your timing a little bit. And A, how long are you allowing your dog to walk out of position before addressing them? And B, how long are they actually walking at your side before you're actually rewarding? Make sure that you're not rewarding too quickly, which may be causing a little bit of confusion for your dog.
Kinder teacher mentions my dog's on a restricted diet. She can only have her kibble, looks like her kibble, while we figure out what's causing the GI issues. And that's not that, that's not a challenge you can't overcome. So one of the things that we include, we don't want to be completely focused on food. We're slowly, with the McCann method, we use food up front because it's a resource that all dogs find valuable. Yep. And it is, our focus is to wean off of the food. So something we'll always use to bridge that gap is your voice. So if you're having trouble with, your dog and you find that they can only have kibble or whatever the thing is, then you have to reduce one of the 3 Ds, distance, duration, or distraction. Mm-hmm. So you have to make it a little bit easier for your dog. And you can still use your kibble, but you're going to want to be using your voice, maybe even some touch. Maybe you can even like pet your dog or touch them while they're at your side. But don't think that if I can't use a great treat, there's no way for me to overcome this, whatever challenge is. I want you guys to really be thinking outside the box sometimes, really using your voice to supplement that food reward. And ultimately, it'll just be your voice that your dog's being rewarded by or praised by.
I think at some point we probably should talk about technique maybe as well, because I think sometimes that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about that. I just want to see if there's any, someone had mentioned, I think Mary's Bodhi's hunting DNA is kicked in. She's anticipating a squirrel distractions before we go out. Stalking starts as soon as the door opens and launching after the squirrels. This is where your leave it is going to be helpful, Mary, so that using that voice, this is with any hunting breed, sight hounds. I mean, those dogs are really stimulated by motion. Yep. So this is when you're going to interrupt that thought pattern, that behavior with your leave it. When they check back in with you, you can praise them like crazy, but you don't want to walk out the door with her already trying to hunt down a squirrel.
I think it's really important for people to know that, when it comes to teaching your dog to walk on leash, it's not something that your dog knows how to do when they arrive to you. It's really and truly something that you need to train. And I find in most cases when I see people who are struggling with walking, there's, one of a couple reasons. Number one, the person's technique and timing is usually off, so the dog's not getting good information. And number two, and this is the most common thing that I've seen, is dogs they have not been taught yet how valuable and how rewarding it is to be at your left-hand side. A lot of people they teach backwards. They go out, they bombard their dog with distractions, they put them in a hard situation where squirrels and all things are going to happen, and then they end up correcting the dog when they actually haven't started out by saying, hey, walking at my left is like really fun. You know, it's a great thing to do. And if you've done a lot of work, you know, teaching your dog that it's valuable to be at your left-hand side on a loose leash without distractions, they're much more likely to want to go there in the first place. You know, and I think to myself, you know, why don't I have these problems? When I take my dog for a walk, my dogs don't care about squirrels. They don't care about other dogs. They don't care about any of those things. I haven't had to do a lot of correcting for those moments. And if I think about why, it's because I have had hundreds of repetitions of rewarding my dog for paying attention to me and looking, you know, looking at me and walking at my left when there's not a lot of distractions. So I build a crazy amount of drive and want to be close and attentive to me, so that when there's something else that's tempting, my dog says, but I really like my mom. I really like to be with her, because I've, you know, drilled that into the puppy by doing so many fun, motivating things. And that way, when I get to a point where there's a distraction, my dog is much more in tuned to me and wants to do things with me more, because that's just sort of all that they know.
I love this point, and it speaks to leadership. You know, you're being a great leader. You're helping your dog to be more successful by not allowing them to make all kinds of mistakes. There's an image somewhere recently that I saw that showed, you know, what that people encounter these problems, then look for the solution. How do I get my dog to stop chewing on shoes? How do I stop my dog from peeing in the house? When it could all be avoided if you were just a little better at management and much better at supervision. And you know, your dog is going to start understanding that you're worth listening to, that you are where all good things come from, and that you know, if they make a mistake, you're there to give them the information. That's so critical. They don't, because dogs are just going to do what feels good, what tastes good. You know, they're just going to make these really simple choices. And if you're not there to guide them, you know, they're always learning. You need to be there to give them good information.
A couple of people are asking about whether we train our dogs on the left and the right.
I saw that. Yeah. So Carol Pilgrim. Was
There's
that
a whole
who
bunch
it was?
more down below.
Yeah. Okay. We're doing things a little bit differently today. We're always changing things up here. So.
Is there a proper side to walk your dog, right or left? Does it matter which side of the dog you walk on?
Yeah, Carol.
With the leashes in your left hand or right hand. We train our dogs on the left hand side, and why we do it? Well, it's just sort of tradition. You know, way back in the day, you know, when dogs were used as working dogs in service, they would walk on, you know, the soldier's left-hand side, and the soldier would have their gun on the right. Just sort of goes back in tradition, and it's in obedience and that type of thing. It's just always sort of been a thing. You absolutely can train your dog to do things on the right. And in fact, my dogs do lots of things on both sides because of all the agility training that I do. But it's nice on the left-hand side because I find that I can walk by other people to the inside and have my dog be away from the other people that are on my right. It can keep them a bit
people
more under
will
control.
often choose that side. So the other thing that I just thought about was not just sort of the tradition, but if we're walking on the road or a street, you're walking with traffic coming toward you, you'll want your dog away from the vehicle. You don't want them on
the
that
inside.
On the inside. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's another reason.
And when we walk with our dog on our left, we actually hold our leash in our right hand, and that frees up our left hand. And we keep our left hand free because we want to use it to reward the dog or correct the dog for pulling. So your right hand just sort of holds the leash, and it keeps it gathered up, and it keeps it neat and tidy and under control. And your left hand will do a lot of rewarding or redirecting or whatever it might be. We feed our dog out of the left hand because it encourages the dogs to be at the left hand side. This is something I was talking to Ken about before the live stream started that I've had to help a lot of students with this week. We're switching it, doing the other way around, holding the leash in their left and feeding with the right. And what I see the dogs start to do is start to cut across their handler's feet to get the food, and then the student ends up tripping over their dog.
Here's a bit of a tease. for you guys, but Sunday morning at 9 a.m., we're releasing a video. It's something we haven't shown before.
Do I know what it is?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
You do.
I actually don't know what he's talking about.
Well, I hope so. You're the one that thought it was a good idea to do this video, so
Oh.
I've got the video ready.
Oh.
But it's a walking video, and it's for you guys that are starting to progress a little
I know
bit.
what it is
yeah.
now.
Oh, it's gonna be. You're gonna.
Okay.
You guys are gonna enjoy it.
It is good.
It was fun to make. So this video, the
I
contents.
think I'm in it, aren't I?
Oh yeah. The contents of this
I
video
remember now.
changed my walking entirely. And Kayl and I have way too many conversations about dog training at the dinner table. But we were having a conversation talking about what some of the things she was going to be working on with one of her classes this week. And when she told me, I'm like, I thought this is perfect, especially for those of you who are working on your walking on leash training and the speed at which you can see like big changes. I'm pumped. I'm pumped to release it because I know you guys will find it helpful.
Yeah.
But that's Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So check that out. Yeah, I know we've got tooting dogs in the room. You know what?
There's Toots
The
over
big
here,
toot.
and there's definitely Toots coming from over there.
Absolutely.
Ugh.
So you talked a little bit about. Let's see. I wanted to answer Pippa Blamey's question. What kind of harness do you recommend? We actually don't recommend a harness. We found that we want to give our dog the most precise information possible. And the best way to do that is with something like a neck collar or a head collar. It's very precise. It allows your dog to feel the tension on the leash. Mm-hmm. And then they can adjust for it. We want to give them the choice to make a decision. We don't want to take advantage of some, unusual leash setup or like control point on their chest. We want to have that control of their head because it's going to make a big difference. So we actually don't recommend using a harness unless your dog has neck issue, like a throat issues, or there's some
Or they're really
physical
tiny
reason,
or something,
that you can't use it.
Yeah, or once like I've used a harness with my dogs here and there, like at dog shows, but it's for sort of looks, just looks cool. But my dog has already been trained to walk. It's really difficult to train a dog to walk on a harness. You just don't get the same leverage and direction, and a lot of dogs just kind of lean in and pull. Hence why sled dogs wear harnesses.
Right, exactly.
It's easy to pull on
and they're
them.
built for it.
Yep.
So Cindy Bennett mentions the collar video is very helpful. I'm glad it was helpful for you, and I think I posted it up here somewhere, guys. For those of you who haven't seen the collar video, it might be in a card above. Dan, lots of links Luton, has asked, will you guys do a live training session on showing how to keep your dog in your left, hold the leash, cut the leash, and correct with timing?
Yeah, I can show that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what you alluded to before. Okay, let's grab dog. You know what else? When Kayl heads over there, it's time for us to head on over to the train station.
Okay, I don't know what dog to use.
Gives me a chance to toot. It also gives whichever dog's over here that's tooting, gives them some free tooting space.
Oh my God, Blue is so stinky.
I see that
Stinkalicious.
SD Cruiser has jumped in.
Hi.
Welcome, SD Cruiser. Glad you could join us. See if I can get things lit up. We're having some technical things going on here, but I can't wait to take you guys over. I think we're ready. Are we ready to go there? Okay, in just one moment, Kayl. First, I need to mention to everybody, let's head on over to the train station.
Sam, come here. Sit. Okay, I just have a couple items that I have here. I've attached Slam's collar with a 6-foot leather leash. I really personally like using leather because it's a lot more comfortable on my hands, especially when you're working with a dog that does a lot of pulling. It's more comfortable. And I have a bait bag full of treats, and I'm going to attach it to the left side of my body so that I have easy access to the treats. As your dog gets more advanced, you certainly don't have to do that. Why is this not going on my pants? Look at his face. He's like, Mom, are we about to do some training? I was just about to give up on the bait pouch, but I've landed it. We're good. Okay. So, cutie, the first thing that I would do before I even do any walking training is I would teach Slam that moving to my left-hand side is a really valuable thing. Now, what's also extremely important is that if I expect my dog to learn to walk on a loose leash, it's incredibly important that I don't train him on a tight leash. And we see a lot of people do this, move to my left, and they pull and drag the dog in at the side. I'm sorry, buddy, that probably wasn't very pleasant for you. And if I do that, there's two things that are happening. Number one, he'll never learn to do things on a tight leash because, I've never given him an opportunity. And number two, when I train him, if I pull on the leash and with his training, for him, this means you've done something wrong. And I don't want to tell him he's done something wrong before he's even had a chance to show me. So we would rather you do this in a little bit more of a positive way. Okay, so I'm going to let him leave my side, and I'm going to get a couple treats out of my left hand, and I'm going to use the food to draw him to my left. Now, we train our dogs that the word yes means that you're correct. So as soon as he comes to my left-hand side, I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to reward him. And I'm just going to practice letting him move away from my side, luring him to my left, and rewarding him. So this becomes the sweet spot for him. And I'm not even worried about a sit in the beginning. I just want him to come to my left and get a reward. So I have 3 treats. I'm going to try it 3 times here. Ready, buddy? Yeah. Yes. Good boy. Okay. And I'll let him leave. What's this? Yes. Good boy. Good if he goes over here. Yes. Good boy. So each time he comes to my side, I'm going to yes and reward him. Okay. Good boy. Yes, good boy. Now, when we teach our dogs to walk, we generally will start with a control position, like having them get in and sit. We actually teach the behavior. We call it get in. So I'll show you what it looks like once the dog is trained to do it.
And this is a great thing to do with your dog who isn't ready to do lots of loose leash walking. Like,
yeah, so somebody earlier said, you know, what do I do with my dog if I can't take them for a walk? Like, what types of things can I do to tire them out or to work on this? This is exactly one of the drills that we would do to teach our dogs about, you know, walking at our side. And we could just do it in a really small space in the living room. You don't need a lot of space. And this sort of gets him using his mind, which is going to tire him out, and it builds value from our left-hand side. So we call this exercise get in. So I'll show you a final product. This is what it looks like when your dog knows it already. So without any prompting, food, or leash, my leash is loose, I can tell him, get in, Sam, get in. Yes, good boy. And he'll learn to move in and get into my left-hand side without me making him go. He learns that this is a really fun thing to do. Okay, show them again. Ready? Get in. Get in. Yes, good boy. And the way we teach this, okay, is just by using a little bit of food. So I would start with the food on his nose. Hero, be quiet. And I would lure him to my left-hand side, right beside me, and as he's at my side, I'm going to lift the food up above his nose, which is going to help him to SIT. Yes, good boy. Maybe I'll change direction so you can see it again.
Yeah.
Okay?
Roll quietly.
So if he's in front of me, I'm going to take the food. Hey, just chill. I'm going to lure him back behind me into my left-hand side, and then I'm going to raise my hand. Yes, good boy. And I'm going to reward him several times for holding that sit at my side. Good boy. Now, hopefully you could notice I have my leash on my dog so that he can't run away from me, but I'm not using it. I'm keeping it loose. Good boy. Good man. And that builds a lot of value for moving to my left-hand side. Okay. Now, once I've worked a little bit on walking and I need to address him if he's doing things incorrectly, you'll notice my food is at my left-hand side, and that's to keep him here. If I was feeding with this hand, what ends up happening, okay, is he's going to end up coming across my feet in order to get the reward. So I don't want to feed out of this hand. I need to feed with my left-hand side. And I always think about my dog's ears being sort of in beside my pant seam. So this is around the area that I want his head to be. So it's incredibly important that I reward him in this location. If I'm doing this and I'm rewarding him ahead, the dog always gravitates to where the food is. This is another common thing that we see. People yes and reward their dog, but look how he's looking away from me. I'm not really teaching very good focus here. So where I hold my food is crucial. I'm going to hold it nice and close to my body. His head's turned in. So he realizes food doesn't fall out of the sky magically into your mouth. The food comes from me. The good stuff comes from me. When you turn in towards me, really good things happen. Now, as your training progresses, you also can start to introduce some leash corrections if your dog is not walking the way that you want. But again, typically in our programs, we wouldn't introduce something like this until 4 or 5 weeks into the program. We spend 4 or 5 weeks consistently building value with food and reward for walking at our left-hand side. Once I get to the process where my dog says, wow, this is a lot of fun, I'll just move around a little bit with him here. So if I move this way, I can feed him at my side. Yes, good boy. Might move this way, I can turn. Yes, good boy. Good man, I can turn this direction. Yes. But again, look at the location, yes, that I'm feeding my dog. I'm feeding him right beside me in the same spot each and every time. You'll notice my hand, this is another common thing people will do, is they'll feed and then they'll go like this. and they'll pull the dog around. Again, look how tight my leash is. I don't want to be doing that. I want to keep the leash loose so that he's learning to walk on a nice loose leash. Yes, that's perfect. And then I can, yes, and reward that. Now, as I was mentioning, once my dog starts to get the hang of this and he's no longer walking in position, say he's too walking far ahead, or he's too far behind me, what I could do is with my leash gathered up, I could slide my left hand down the leash and then I could bump the leash until he moves back to my side. So if he's too far behind me, I could slide my, hold on, I want to do it slow so they can see. Good. He knows what's happening. I could slide my left hand down the leash and then you could see how my dog already understands. Oh, there's her hand on the leash. I know where I'm supposed to go. I'm supposed to get back to that special spot again. You're so good. What a good boy.
So a couple great questions.
So I'd slide my hand down and then I could use my little leash pops from there. But again, you can already see he's gravitating to the side because he's had so many rewards.
So a couple great questions. Nicole says, how do you teach proper response to the pressure first? And then Anthony LA3
pressure of the leash?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Anthony says, how do you correct that crooked sit from that position? How do you correct a crooked sit?
Okay. So we'll do the pressure of the leash first. In the beginning stages of our training, we do a lot of practice where we pop on the leash and then we lure the dog towards us. So if he was a bit distracted, I would pop, yes, and then I would draw him in and reward. I would pop, draw him in and reward. Good boy. Pop, draw him in and reward. Because I don't want my dog to be worried about that. I want him just to understand, oh, when I feel that leash, I need to come in nice and close to my owner. So initially, we would teach it with a bit of food, so that's how we would teach that response. In terms of the crooked sit, you can see I have a crooked sit right now. There's two things that you could do. You could emphasize teaching a stronger get in, so I could tell him get in and work on luring him to my side until he understands that. Or we also would teach what we call a sit placement, and this is really easy for the dog to understand, but it's a little bit more challenging for the human because it takes a bit more mechanics. So with him sitting anywhere at my side, or he could even start with him standing, I would actually cut my leash in half. My right hand, which is currently holding onto the leash, would go down. It would grab the leash close to the dog's collar. That would give me good control of my dog's head, and that frees up my left hand. My left hand would then act as a bit of a rudder, and I would use that to sort of scoop his bum in and tuck him right beside me into a sitting position. I would lift up on the leash, tuck his little bum underneath him so he's as close to me as possible. So I'm just going to show you what that looks like. I would cut the leash, sit. Good boy. And then once he's sitting, the really important part is to stand up and put slack in the leash again. Because again, I don't want to force my dog to sit here. I want the leash to be nice and loose. Good boy. And I want him to be reinforced for holding position. So again, if I stopped and he was crooked, I would shorten up on my leash, tuck his bum into where he needed to be. See how this acted as a bit of a rudder? But again, I don't want to feed him on a tight leash. I need to put slack in the leash first. Yes, good boy. And then I can reward. Our golden rule sort of for our students in thinking about the proper leash mechanics is you always look at the clip of the leash. So see how the clip of Slam's leash, the clip is aiming towards the floor? Even this, we would consider being too tight of a leash. So my clip is pointing up towards me. The dog would still feel tension on their leash. So I would loosen it up enough that I have sort of like a gentle a J shape in my leash, and my clip would be pointing towards the floor. And that would allow my dog to understand to do this independently, okay? But tons and tons and tons of rewards for being at your left-hand side. And this is what I would do before I even went outside. We're gonna show you a couple other things as well, but I don't know if you wanna take a little break.
Let's head on back over here.
Okay.
Kayl, no big deal. Just dropping piles of knowledge here in the train station. Some great questions, and we do these live streams for you guys, so I want to make sure that we answer your questions. We haven't gotten to any of our teaching plans tonight. We wanted to be able to give you some options. We won't forget about those things, but there are some things that we do need to address and talk about here in the chat. I saw someone asking about the front clip harnesses, and there's been a couple great responses. So Subin D said the front clip collars have been shown to hinder movement and cause damage over time because the dog's gait is affected, for sure. And that is, that's a
There's several
big part of
harnesses,
it.
not even front clip harnesses, that have been shown to do that as well.
Now, with that said, we'll put our dogs on a harness sometimes after they've learned how to walk on a loose leash. You know, we're not saying never wear a harness, but it's like a special thing. Maybe it's like at an agility event, wearing it for a short period of time, but it's not a great training tool. It's not something that we put on a dog who doesn't already know how to walk on a loose leash.
And I'm pretty picky about the ones that I use, that it doesn't like restrict their movement, so that when they're running, they can, you know, open up their stride, you know, those types of things. Like, we're pretty picky about what we use, but as Ken's saying, it's always after our dogs. So my dog, if my dog was on a harness and I was walking them, they would never be pulling me because they would already been trained not to pull. So the leash would be loose, so it doesn't really matter. There's no tension on the leash, so, you know, they could be wrapped in all kinds of things. It wouldn't matter because the training's already been accomplished.
Yeah, and then Jody said she'd heard about gentle leader causing neck injuries. And that's one thing that you do need to be aware of, is with using a gentle leader, because you have so much head control, you don't do anything beyond a 6-foot leash. The only way that your dog could get hurt is if you're using that piece of equipment inappropriately. Yeah. Whereas passively, the harness isn't a good tool. Actively using a gentle leader incorrectly, which we have tons of gentle leader videos, but they'll help you to make sure that you avoid any of those. I've used a gentle leader with my own dog for years, but it is important that you use good technique. But it's important to use good technique with every single training apparatus there is, because when you use, you know, if you use, it's not you can't just slap a piece of equipment on and expect to be like, oh, right, my dog will listen now. That's not really how dog training works. Wouldn't it be nice though if that was the case? But that's not the case. You need to pair good training, good information, good reinforcement with the appropriate training collar. But you need both sides of the story. Just doing one or the other for a lot of dogs just isn't enough. Yeah, people are always looking for that thing that they can buy that's going to fix these problems. That's going to make it a magic fix. Yeah, and there is no such a thing, and it's so important to spend that time with your dog, working with your dog. And that's why that's ultimately, you didn't imagine yourself being pulled down the street by your dog. I'm sure you envisioned wonderful times of hanging out on the couch and going and playing fetch at the park, which is something we'll talk about in a minute. Yep. But you imagine doing all these amazing things with your four-legged family member, and it takes some effort. It takes a little bit of investment from you, but you can get there. Mm-hmm. And that's why, throughout our channel, we're setting the bar high for you. We're giving you the best possible outcome. We have the expectation, because I've seen it tens of thousands of times, dogs that came in like spinning around at the end of the leash, and I thought, wow, this is a wild dog. And after 8 weeks of training, the student, they're like, so much better. They're attentive, and they're like coming when they're called, and like, it's just so amazing. They just need, and I know you can accomplish the same thing. Yeah, exactly. They need good information. That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. So speaking of good information, when you have a dog in training, when you're working through some of these skills, we talked a little bit about shortening the duration that you're doing that walking training, really giving your dog the best information you can for a short period of time. But what that might mean is that you're not going for as long a walk as your young dog needs, or you're not burning off all of that energy. So we want to talk to you about a couple of simple exercises that you can do with a puppy, a young dog in training, even an old dog. Maybe it's a new dog to you, but their skill level's low. So you need to burn off that energy without undoing all your walking training. We're going to talk about a couple of simple relationship builder exercises that you can do with your dog. Yep. The other thing that's great about this, and something that we just mentioned before we went on the air, was this is also great for those times where you have to get out the door. You get up and you're like, oh no, I'm late, or you have a wild day and you got to head out of the door for a couple hours, and you need to do something with your dog. You want to do something that engages them, that burns off that energy, so they don't have to sit around anxiously waiting for you to come home. If you're short on time, these exercises are the kinds of things I want you to be practicing with your dog, because it's number one, it's great for leadership. Let's jump into it, and then we can talk about why they're so helpful. So playing tug with our puppies is a go-to for us. I would say that when we have a puppy, we play tug games, like with a toy, where we're tugging and playing and stuff. Would you say like 2 or 3 times a day? For sure. Minimum, right? Yeah, for sure. Every
every single day we are playing some type of toy tug game with our dogs. Number one, it tires them out so much. And number two, it's a great way for them to have an outlet where they get to like be energetic and crazy and fun, but like we're doing something that's productive together. We're playing together versus like the dog running around the backyard and like not even knowing that I exist. We're doing something together. And I also can teach my dog things like, you know, be careful with your mouth and be respectful. Don't grab the toy until you're allowed to. You need to give the toy back to me when I ask you for it. There's so many great leadership exercises that I can start to instill in my dog, all while doing something that's super fun and active and tiring, because a tired dog is an easier dog to deal with. So we want to let them exude all of that energy, but we want you to do things that are going to be productive for your training and most importantly for your relationship. This
has been an action-packed train station so far. Like there's so much information.
If I'm going to do tugging, I'm going to have to put Hero outside.
So why don't we just work on the out? So the biggest challenge.
Really excited.
I know we have we have Kayl's mom and dad's dogs here as well, and they're not used to the train station.
They're not used to the whole live stream thing. All of our other dogs get the process, but they just sort of hang out while we do it.
And they're just off screen here, so you might hear a little bit of noise from those the other dogs.
Fun out there.
But the biggest challenge that people find when they have a young puppy or a young dog or a dog with a lower skill level is they're worried about the tug creating some sort of possessiveness or that their dog just doesn't give up the tug. And you're right. That needs to be something that you think about. Before you start playing tug with your puppy or your dog, you're going to start to teach them an out. And that out is crucial for this activity. Same thing with a fetch. The same exact thing goes for your fetch, which is another skill that we'll talk about maybe a little bit. Can we show how to set some of the things to think about for these guys to start teaching their dog to play tug or your puppy? Okay. I mean, I love tug because it requires me for that dog to, play with that object. We use lots of using an interactive toy, something that's long enough that you don't get your fingers bit with a young dog that's sort of learning how this process works. But I love tug because it's such a great relationship builder. And with no further ado, I'm going to send this one on over to the train station.
Okay. I think what I'll do is just sort of show you what like a finished product tug and out looks like, so you sort of have a mental picture of what we're expecting the dog to do. So first of all, if I was to put this toy in front of my dog's nose and start to wiggle it around, it sort of looks like he's not very interested in toys, but that's because he's learned since a baby puppy that you can't you can't grab at toys unless you've been given permission. So we have a little starter command that we use that says, all right, you can go crazy. So I'll say to him, okay, which is his release command, and then I'll say, get it. And that means we're allowed to grab it and have a lot of fun, and I'll let him be wild and crazy. And then when I want the toy back, I'm just going to really calmly and nicely ask him by saying the word out. And I expect him to let go of the toy right away and let me have it. Ready? Okay, get it. Boy. So I'm going to sort of tug with him a little bit, let him play with it, move it back and forth. And then when I ask him out, yay, that was such a good boy. Okay, get it? Good boy. So I can say, get it. I can move my toy around. I can sort of smack his side a little bit. I can tickle him. I can have a lot of fun. Let him get crazy. Out. Yay, that's such a good boy. And again, I don't have to train him for anything once he's learned it, but that's sort of what it looks like when you actually learn it. So to teach your dog this, number one, you need to make sure you have a toy that's easy for your dog to put their mouth on. We really like to use things that are soft and easy for the dog to grab, and we also like something that has a string or a rope on it so that you can move it around and dance it around and make it really exciting. The other thing you want to do is have something that's very high value for your dog. So this time what I'm going to do is show you how we teach the out command. I'm going to let Slam bite on the toy, and as he's tugging, I'm going to sneak my hand into my bait pouch here where I have some salmon treats. They're very stinky. I can literally smell them from here. And while he's tugging away, I am going to stop tugging so that the toy seems a bit more boring. And I'm going to put these salmon treats right on Grand Slam's nose. And when he smells them, he's going to drop the toy because he's going to want the food. And then we can trade. So we use a bit of a trade system. What's really important to know, though, when you trade this, is that it's important that you give your command first before you trade them. I see a lot of people do this the opposite way. They show the dog the treat and then they give them the command. And we see a lot of dogs hold on to the toy until the person reaches for food. So it's command first. Secondly, going to be showing the dog the food. So this is how it looks like if you're training Neo. Okay, get it? So I'm going to let him have the toy. I've reached into my pocket. I have a salmon piece of food in this hand. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop tugging, and I'm going to put the food right on his nose, and I'm going to trade him when I say the word out. So I'm going to say out first. Tug, 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 good. Out. Yes, good boy. And I'm going to trade it, and you'll notice that I've snuck the toy away and put it behind my back, so it's not quite so exciting. I'm going to reward him again. Good boy. Hero, that's enough. Quiet. And then I'm going to bring the toy out. Get it? Good boy. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to have some food hidden away in my hand here. Good boy. Out. Yes. Good boy. And I'm going to trade him for the reward. It is very important that what you trade them for, your dog feels is more valuable than what you're tugging. Because if he was tugging on a toy and he thought this was like a $20 value and I offered him a toonie, well, that's not going to really work. This needs to be $20 and this needs to be $100 or $50. So he says, woo, it's worth my while. And as you start to practice it, Hero, be quiet. You're going to find that when you have the toy in the dog's mouth and you start to say out before you can even show them the treats, your dog says, woo, I know what happens if I let go of that reward. You're going to give me something even better in return. And before you know it, the dog's giving the toy up to you right away. But it's important that you play around with the types of toys that you're using and the type of reward that you're using. We have some people, get a toy out and the dog's not that interested and they automatically think, oh, my dog doesn't really want to do this. And sometimes it's just a case of that the toy's not very exciting. This particular toy is great. You can it opens right up. He doesn't really need this because he likes all kinds of toys. But it's got a Velcro pocket in it. You can jam it full of treats. So there's all kinds of toys out there on the market that will encourage good toy drive and tug. And you do this for 5 or 10 minutes, man, your dog will be nice and tired and they'll want to go have a nap.
Yeah. Good. Heading on back here. After Kayl drops knowledge, now there was a couple questions that that people had asked, and Kayl just intuitively answered them.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, for those of you who have a dog that isn't immediately into toys, that can be a super helpful thing. Finding the right size, the right material. Maybe it's a food in...
Some dogs are funny about texture as well. Like we have one dog that she really likes like rubberized toys, Funky. She really likes rubberized toys. Yep. Or our poodle, she really likes things that have like fur on them, like faux fur.
Right.
We got one that was like a rabbit fur type, fake rabbit fur, of course, type toy. And I think it's just finding different, different options. Not every dog likes every single thing, so you have to be creative sometimes, but you can teach any dog to like toys.
Yeah.
Just mattering finding the right thing.
Yeah, animating it, keeping it below their head, make it look like prey. That's what triggers the dog, is that they want to catch that thing. It's built into them to catch the thing. Animate it on the ground. Maybe even put a line or a leash on it and get it moving. But
that's important. A lot of people say tug, 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 and they wiggle it in front of the dog's face.
No,
and
thank you.
I don't like that. So you gotta make it fun.
So let's jump into the chat and see what's going on here. Man,
Out
I hope that
word.
answered your question, man. It's her 7-year-old.
Oh, and the other thing that I should say too is that if you're trying to teach your dog to have more value for a toy, it's really important that you don't have like a bunch of toys littered all over your house at all times.
Oh, that's a good
idea. If you were to come and look at our house is quite funny. We have a toy box in our living room, and there are 2 types of toys. There's chew bones, and there's like Kong type bones where they're rubber toys that you could put food inside of, but there is no squeaky toys. There's no soft rope toys. There's nothing that our dogs could lay and like rip apart and chew. And I will say though, our dogs have hundreds of those toys. Hundreds is probably a fetch, although I probably could come up with 100 toys, don't you think?
Probably, yeah.
But those are like in our training bags or in our toy boxes, like away, and we bring those out to play with our dogs and train our dogs, and then when we're done, we put them away. So they're very special and exciting for our dogs. Our dogs don't get them all the time, so when we pull them out, instantly the dog's like, oh my goodness, that's that toy that you play with me with, and we do fun things. dogs don't like things generally that they get all of the time. The novelty wears off. So we would suggest that you try not to let your dog have access to what we would call interactive toys on a regular basis. Save those for special moments between you and your dogs.
We're well into the general puppy training information session, so I think we're going to stay on topic a little bit, but now we can loosen up a little bit about what topics we're talking about. But I see tons of great questions here in the chat that are specific to walking on leash, and I think that's what a lot of people are really struggling with. So C. Ellis has a great question. How do you know when to use a gentle leader over a flat collar? So this is something that we sort of have to consider as we're progressing with our dog's training. If you feel like that piece of equipment isn't sufficient, you can't get success because your dog is too stimulated or they're too strong. This is usually the case. The dog is so rambunctious or too strong, and you feel like you aren't able to give them specific information, then maybe a gentle leader is a good option. Another thing, and this is, we had a couple of students in our last session that they've just graduated and they had worried dogs. And both of those students used a gentle leader because they needed to manage their dog they were trying to sort of tuck away and hide and stuff. And the difference, and one of the students came up to me after and she said, I can't believe the difference the gentle leader made. Yeah. And it was so exciting for me because
so many people are like, why didn't I start using this earlier?
Yeah, and so many people are like, oh, no, it's a muzzle. It's
or
not.
They think they're failing, or they think that they're not doing a good job as a dog trainer when they have to use one, and that's absolutely not the case. Our sole goal when we're training our dogs is to reach success as quickly as we possibly can and as easy as we possibly can. And
by getting them motivated.
Yeah, you have and focusing more motivated. On building your dog up rather than, it's not pleasant to go for a walk where you're constantly being dragged, or you're pulling on the leash, or you're trying to correct your dog. It's not productive training. You want to find something that's going to work. So some dogs work perfectly fine on just a flat buckle collar, and you'll never need a gentle leader. I think it's just so dog dependent. And people dependent as well. For sure. Some people, they're little and they have these huge strong dogs, and they can get pulled over really easily. Or if we have husbands that do really well with the dogs, and then like their mothers or their kids or whoever take the dogs for a walk and they can't manage the dog, so then one person gets to walk the dog in the house, and that's not a very fun thing. You want everybody to be involved. So
now I'm going to be completely honest here. I would say it's often the other way around. Often like the wife, the female in the household, is the great trainer, and the husband is not as good as his wife.
I'm going to agree with you.
Yeah, that's more commonly the case.
That's because,
as much as it's hard for me to admit that, that is more often what I see. But that's not. We've had some incredible guys come in to train.
You know what guys need to be better at in dog training?
Vocalizing, communicating with their dog. Yeah, for sure.
But I think that what women do, maybe because they don't really care, is they end up like being like squeakier and like a little bit more like woo, like they get more exciting. And I
think they're genuinely engaged. They're genuinely excited.
Yeah.
And that transfers right down the leash. Your dog's like, oh, you appreciate my effort.
I will say though, I've had some really fantastic like male trainers that are like a little bit more no nonsense, but in like the best ways. And the dogs are so much more respectful.
They just they have a little higher expectations. They just don't know how to get there.
People who are good natural leaders are typically great dog trainers.
For sure.
And if people are a little bit more pushovers, they typically struggle with the dogs a little bit more until they learn how to teach an animal to listen to them a bit more.
Yeah. So Stamp and Share, this is extremely important to us. Tug, is it okay for Kitty to talk a fun growl?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Lots of dogs will growl and make sounds, and a lot of the time it's simply just out of pure enjoyment. Yeah, that's absolutely okay. I wouldn't worry about that at all. Lots of dogs are very vocal when they tug.
Anthony LA 310, maybe a silly question, but would you recommend playing tug while teaching fetch? We actually, Dan the Man, lots of links, Luton dropped a link in the chat. We actually highly encourage tug while you're playing fetch. Get using an interactive toy, and you'll see in that video, I think it's Teach Your Dog to Love Fetch. Yeah, we use
tug as like the reward when the dog gets back to us. So we throw the toy out, we keep the dog on a long line or a leash, and we encourage the dog to come back to us. And when the dog comes back to us, we try to avoid taking the toy from them right away, because that's sort of what the dog doesn't want you to do. So instead, we take a hold of the toy, and then we play like 10 seconds of like tug, and we praise and make it a big deal and make it fun for coming back, and then we work our out or drop it, and then we practice our throw again. So we absolutely encourage our tug and play as part of our retrieve.
There's a good question in here, and I may have just lost it. He's dropped all
What
the
is
time.
it
That's true.
What was it regarding?
It was. I'll see if I can find it here. I adopted. So Jennifer says I adopted a maybe 7-year-old pug. He's an obedience nightmare. I'm not sure what the when-year-old. Oh, when-year-old. So she's not sure. He's an obedience nightmare. Pug's more difficult to train.
1-year-old pug.
Or it's sort of like a play on words that she's not totally sure.
Oh, okay.
It's hard to say. With that said, he's an obedience nightmare. Pug's more difficult to train. It seems our other dogs were much easier.
No, I would disagree. I actually have seen a lot of very, very fabulous pugs in classes. They're quite smart, actually. It could be just that your dog, maybe didn't get a great start in life in terms of like understanding that you're supposed to do things for humans. And you just might have to go back and treat that dog as if it's a baby puppy. Start fresh, start right from the beginning, and then go from there. But pugs are quite lovely dogs, from our experience anyways. And I think it's just a matter of figuring out how to give them the right information. And just because the dog could be a little bit older or whatever the age might be, you can't assume that the dog knows stuff. And it's difficult when you get an older dog. A lot of people just see an older dog and they assume that they have training.
Right.
And you can't do that. We got a dog at 9 years old, Mac, our herding border collie, and he fabulous herding sheepdog, but he didn't know how to sit, he didn't know how to lie down, he didn't have a recall, like all kinds of things. And when
he knew how to lie down, but specifically
only around sheep.
On sheep, yeah.
He didn't know in other
Yeah,
situations.
and he wasn't a house dog, and that was something that we had to work with.
He wasn't house trained. He didn't know not to chew things, all of these things. So we basically just did everything that we did with a 10-week-old puppy, bringing them into the house.
So this connects to Nicole Meyer's question. What advice do you have for me who just got a new shelter dog, getting them settled and ready for training? So we have, and I was at a conference not that long ago, and someone asked me that, she said, I love your channel, but I don't have a puppy. I just adopted this dog. And I mentioned to her that I should make it more clear that all of those puppy training videos apply to your new dog. Mm-hmm. We have this sort of thought that what we should teach our dog is very specific to their age, or that rehomed dogs are somehow different. And that is, that could be the case. Who knows what their background is? But the information that you give them starting on day one in their new home with you is the same as a puppy.
Yeah.
It's all about the things we talked about at the top of the show, setting them up for success, good management, using a crate so that they can't get into trouble, and you aren't constantly saying, oh, leave that, oh, you can't, don't do that, don't chew on that, hey, don't pee there. So approach it. You can watch all of our puppy training videos and you will get some value from them. And depending on what the skill is, but you might see the older dog, your new shelter dog, progressing more quickly, or maybe a little bit more slowly, but ultimately you're going to work toward whatever we accomplish in the video. Just we sort of in our minds, and I think it's maybe from like our school system, where like 8-year-olds are in grade so and so, and if you're 16, you're in grade whatever. That's not the case. It's all about your dog's ability.
They all progress differently.
Yeah, for sure. Kenneth says, great name, by the way. Says, my German Shepherd puppy can play tug for more than an hour. Should I stop playing with him early? I love this question.
Yeah, that's a bit long to play. We would suggest that you play for shorter periods of time. When we play tug and retrieve with our dogs, we would only play for a few minutes at a time. There's a couple reasons. Number one, it keeps their engagement up, especially for dogs that maybe lose interest. If your dog's not losing interest, you just need to be careful about the wear and tear that you're leaving on your dogs. Shepherds, as a rule, often have a lot of hip issues and physical issues that way. And when they're young and they're not fully developed, that's a lot of impact to have on their body. So I would lessen that a little bit.
Big thank you to Todd. Bought himself the team tee.
Nice.
Very cool. That's it's awesome, and you get to take home one of these bad boys. I really like these shirts. They're super soft. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah,
well, thank you. Thanks for supporting the channel, Todd.
I would just limit the amount of reps that you do. In tugging, you can do tons of tugging, but as far as like fetch and retrieve, I would limit that. Like, we don't even hike our dogs when they're puppies or take them for long walks. We're just really cautious about their body and their growth and stuff. I do a lot of high level agility training, and in my experience, we focus a lot on the dog's development physically and mentally, and we're just really aware because You know, you don't notice it now, but when your dog's 10, 11, 12 years old, you're going to notice it then.
Jolie I think she's from France. Is it a problem for you to bring, it's a problem for you if the dog brings you back a toy and asks you to play with him? I like this question because this is something that a lot of people struggle with. You don't want your dog to dictate essentially what you're doing. It's the same. It would be exactly the same if your dog, if you were doing something in your home and your dog came and sat beside you and barked, saying, hey, it's time to play with me. Now, you do need to recognize the fact that maybe you're underserving or you're under, what's the word I'm looking for? You aren't giving them enough attention, focused work, whatever, at the time. So, identify that. But I wouldn't start playing with that toy at that time. What I might do is take the toy away, go put it in another spot, get them to work a little bit if you have the time, get them to sit, lie down, get them to do something, offer a little bit of effort, and then bring out the toy again. And it's almost like a reward. So it's your idea. Yeah. But I think this is a good one. That's a good point for her to make. Christina says, are there any more energy burning tips or tricks? Yeah, we have a few. So let's talk. Yeah. The first one off the top of my head is going to be trick training. And I know tricks aren't going to fix your walking. Tricks aren't going to fix any of these obedience behavior problems. But what tricks are going to do is they're going to teach you a little bit about that dog. They're going to really help you to understand what makes them tick.
And build focus and attention as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're going to learn what kind of, can help them to learn problem solving. They're going to have to think through some of these exercises. Use tricks to your advantage. And as I mentioned, they're not going to solve problems, but this is what dog trainers do. Dog trainers know that you get more effort from a dog. You show them that offering a little bit of effort means that you get a little bit of reward. And
I absolutely feel the dogs that I have taught tricks to, things like shake a paw, roll over, spin left and right, all kinds of tricks. They learn obedience behaviors like come, sit, stay, walking so much faster because the dogs already had rehearsal of working for me for food, giving me attention, understanding how to do work sessions where the dog understands I do things for you, you reward me, that whole process. It makes the actual training sessions so much better. With every single dog that I've raised, I always, from like age 8 weeks to 12 months, I am constantly teaching them new tricks. It's a great way to keep their mind busy, and it's an excellent way to teach the dog that doing things for me is really fun and motivating. And we do it with every single puppy that we get. I really can't stress how much I love that.
Yeah. I see a couple of people. Drop forward survival. We found the puppy push-ups 3 miles per day and a puppy tag are amazing daily exercises for a Catahoula Staffy rescue pup. That's an intro. I don't know what puppy push-ups are, but that sounds interesting.
Maybe like sit down, sit down, sit down.
Maybe, yeah. That's I'm
we
interested
don't know what
to find
push-ups
out.
Are.
Yeah, sounds cool though. And 3 miles per day is definitely okay for an adult dog, but for anybody who's got a puppy in here, 3 miles would be a long way. But yeah, I think that's an interesting idea. I'm going to check out Drop Forge Survival afterwards and see if there's any information about puppy push-ups.
What would you, when somebody says puppy, what age do you assume they are?
I don't know off the top of my head. I might guess like less than 4 months, less than maybe 5 months.
See, I would say like less than like 7 or 8 months.
Yeah. It's almost a relative term. I think, you know, if you have a multi-dog household, your puppy is the puppy until you get a younger dog.
Yeah.
Cause I've called Beeline our puppy, our youngest dog.
We still call her the puppy and she's almost 3.
Yeah. Big Mama Baker, I'm hearing mixed things about how far to walk our Great Dane puppy. The breeder paperwork says it's too hard on her joints, but she loves to walk and is great on a leash. Big Mama Baker, you have to be careful about your dog's...
Especially with a Great Dane.
Yeah, so while your dog's growing, they'll have open epiphyseal plates, which are their growth plates, basically in their long bones. And any damage to those can create a real issue. You just, especially those large breeds, be really careful about the amount. We wouldn't really talk about going for long walks with a puppy.
A Great Dane, their growth plates aren't even going to be they're not even going to be closed by the time your dog's 12 months old.
Right. So you know who the person I would talk to about that would be your vet. They're gonna tell you definitively whether or not your dog is ready for
And
longer
actually,
walks.
if you really wanted to know and you were okay with forking out the money for it, you can actually get x-rays done and they can tell you that the dog's growth plates are closed or not.
Yeah.
We have done that in our agility training just to make sure that like we're okay to put the jump heights a little higher and things like that. We'll just get a quick x-ray done of the dog and you literally can see that their growth plates are closed. And then for us, it's just sort of like peace of mind that we can start doing more vigorous things for the dog and we're not going to end up getting injuries like down the road.
Christina Ramsey, if walking's not going well, do we stop going for walks and start back at square one? Yeah, you do. Or go back to the last step where you were successful.
Yeah.
I mean, if you find that there's like one specific skill, and I'm excited about that Sunday video. I think that's something that was really helpful for me, but I think you guys will enjoy it as well. But if you find that there's like something that your dog's not that good at, maybe you just need to go back a step. Like maybe you're not going as far. Maybe you're rewarding more often. Maybe you are turning more. You know, we have a long walking on leash playlist. Maybe changing the pace that you're going at is going to make a big difference. But whatever you do, don't rehearse failure. Don't allow your dog to make the mistake over and over and over again. So not necessarily going back to square one. Go back to a point where you can be successful. That's what you need to really thinking about. Jennifer Conley says the pug is 1. You're right. She's not 1 year old. She's 1 year old, or he's 1 year old.
When sounds an awful lot like 1.
Yeah, and I thought it was like a fun way to say that she didn't know what the dog's age was. All for pause. What do you guys think about mixed breeds versus pure breeds, purebred dogs training wise? They're all
We love them all.
Absolutely.
We have both. We have purebreds. We have mixed breeds. They're all fantastic.
Absolutely.
It absolutely doesn't matter.
No.
We love them both.
Let's see what I see. Farmer FPV dropping up with a $2 super chat. Thank you for sharing that. It's maybe a super sticker.
Yeah.
Very cool.
We have a pug owner. There's a little pug with teeth for you.
Very cool. Thank you very much, Farmer
Thank
FPV.
you.
We appreciate you supporting the chat or supporting the stream. You know, we love doing it for sure. And we enjoy the opportunity we get to help you guys out.
Honey, you need to give him a
very,
choo-choo.
very cool. Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
All aboard. Welcome to the train station. Very cool. Thank you, Farmer FPV. There are some really good things that have been zooming by. So Pat Curse, one of our grade 1 students, what age would you start hiking or longer walking? It's going to be success dependent. But if you are thinking about not worrying about your loose leash walking and you just want to go for a hike, when do we start hiking our younger dogs?
We've taken our dogs on hikes as early as I would say 7 or 8 months, I think. But we would have already trained our dogs would have had a recall.
Yep.
We actually have a fabulous vlog. Remember when we took the dogs on a hike?
Oh yeah.
In the forest, and one of our dogs was baby. Was it Beeline maybe or Rad?
Yeah, I think it was. I'm just sorry. I'm just reading the chat. You guys are hilarious, and it was. I don't remember. It was.
Anyways.
We took our dogs swimming and hiking. I wonder if Dan can find that. I don't even know what it would be called.
Anyways,
hiking with the
we
dog or
talked
something.
basically about we had a long line on the dog while we were hiking, so that if the dog didn't come back, we had a line to pick up and ensure that they do that. But it's so again, we can't really say age dependent. It depends on where your dog is and their skills. Do they have a leave it command? Do they have a recall? Are they vaccinated? All these different things are important to note before you do a lot of hiking. But hiking's fabulous. It's so much fun. The dogs absolutely love it. But for us personally, we would make sure that it's not really that fun to take your dog hiking on on leash, walking them because you kind of just want to let them run. So we typically wouldn't do it until our dogs had a bit more of a recall.
I just noticed that farmers FPV's thing. There are so many things happening on the screen. He said, "In case you're short of tuning for the train."
That's awesome.
Here's Maria Miller. Puppy push-ups are sit down, stand in random orders and with quick reps. Yeah, totally makes sense. Christina, Maria, this is definitely a video I'm gonna have to watch multiple times. This is we're in overtime now.
Yeah.
This is taking it deep into the train station.
Yeah.
We're on a long trip. Oh, and Dan found the hiking vlog for you guys.
Oh, nice.
Check that out.
That's a good
now,
one.
when we're talking about other energy burning exercises, if you have a puppy or a young dog or that dog in training, one of my favorites is the restrained recall. And I think...
Is it your favorite?
Oh, for sure, because the dogs go absolutely crazy. They get so excited. And I wonder, can we show one in here, you think? Like, will it be absolute pandemonium? I think it'd be helpful for these guys to see it.
It probably will be, but we can do it anyways.
Yeah, and it also gives me
We play this with all of our dogs so that,
Yeah.
like, what starts to happen is when we start to play the game with one dog and we're not playing it with the other dogs, the other ones start to go crazy because they're like, no, we want to be the one to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Dan mentions Olivia, the co-pilot that we saw earlier in the live shot that is also on overtime. So, hey, Olivia, thanks
Probably past your bedtime.
I know,
Liv.
young lady. It's nice to have you staying up with us. So let's show a restrained recall.
What am I saying? Yes, come on, Kayl.
SD Cruiser.
Show us the train station. What am I supposed to show?
Well, so we're going to head on over to the train station. But SD Cruiser says one day we're going to get Kayl to do it too.
Yeah.
You have no idea how often that happens.
You're,
I'm just kidding.
you're a
I'm totally kidding.
word I can't say on live stream.
I know this is a remember Olivia's watching. Okay, let's head on over
Liv, Uncle Ken is you know what.
to Mater Knight saying hi on live TV. Hey, buddy.
Hi, Livy.
Let's head over to the train station and show a restrained recall. Now, be prepared. If you're wearing headphones, now is the time that you're going to want to pop those headphones.
Turn them up.
Because it may be chaos in your ears. Let's head on over to the train station.
Let's do it. Okay. Come here. Do you want to be the caller or the holder?
I'll be the holder first,
Okay.
maybe. We need to figure out what's the best way we can frame this for these guys.
Just hold the dog and I'll hold the leash. Or you want to put a second leash on?
No, this works.
Okay.
So,
Sit right.
this is what we're talking about, doing a restrained recall. You can do this with a puppy or your young dog in training, but this is something that you're going to, it's one of these exercises you can do in like 3-4 minutes and really burn off a bunch of energy while you're in the backyard, or if before you head out to out of the house for a couple of hours. It's definitely a great exercise to burn off that energy when you don't want to be doing poor loose leash walking.
Yeah, and for this one, we would normally do it in a much larger space, so I'm going to try and stay within the camera so that you can see it. But we would practice this in the backyard together. We practice up and down the hallway quite a bit.
Hallway's a great choice.
Yeah, hallways are awesome because you can close the doors and there's really nowhere to go but you. But basically what you're going to do is, number one, put your puppy or your dog on a leash so that they can't just decide they don't want to do it and go a different direction. And then have one of your dog's favorite rewards. You could use treats. I could also use a tug toy if I wanted to use a toy for this as well. But I'll show you treats because I feel this is probably the most common thing that most dogs like. And when I do it, I'm going to have the leash on, but I'm not going to have the leash tight. I'm going to keep it loose so that it's nice and positive for my dog. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand in front of him and I'm going to tease him with the food. Ken's going to hold him so he can't get to me before I call him. And I could teach him the come command this way. I could teach him a here command. I might even just use his name, which I'm going to do on this one. I'm just going to say slam. And then when I call him, Ken's going to release him and let him run to me and get a big jackpot full of rewards. And I'm going to feed him several pieces of food at a time, making it really motivating to come to me. So I'm going to tease him. Ready, set, cut. I said come instead of his name. I forgot. Sorry. Here. I'm so used to saying the come command when we do this.
But
that
this
I said come.
you
really, can say come if you want
absolutely.
to.
And this
That's
is all
not
about
wrong.
building value for these words. So we're elevating Slam, getting him to the point where he's so excited. And when he hears that word, all he can think about is getting to Kayl.
Ready, set, slam. Yes, good boy. And when he gets close, I'm going to give him a little jackpot. Now, when I reward, I really like to reward one piece of food at a time. If I give him a whole handful of food, he just gets it and it's over and done so quickly. So if I have several pieces of food, I will actually give him one at a time. Okay.
So let's talk
Start with
about...
the toy, maybe?
Yeah, so I think that is a little bit more clear.
Yes.
What if somebody is at home alone
Yes.
and they want to practice this exercise or do this skill? How would they accomplish that?
Yeah, so if I was going to do this by myself, I would again start the same way, treats and leash on the dog so I have good control. And what I would basically do, here's Slimes, is I would take a hold of his collar with the hand that's holding the leash, okay? So my collar's, my hand is in his collar is one. I have several pieces of food, and when I tease him, I'm actually going to push him back, and I'm going to build a bit of drive. Ready, set. I'm sort of priming the pump, and then when he's focused and he's ready and he's excited, I'm going to say his name and then back away. I'm just going to give myself a little bit more space here. Ready? You can see the other dogs are ready. Set. Sam. Yes. Good boy. Good man. And I'm going to reward several times. Good boy for moving towards me. So there's a couple of things that I'm using here that's motivating him. Number one, I'm using food. I'm using something that he really loves. Second, I'm using a really happy, energetic tone of voice. And lastly, I'm using chase drive. And a lot of people don't realize this, is when you want your dog to come towards you, you should back away. You see how when I move, when I start to move away from the dog, how he automatically sort of goes in my direction, he follows me. A lot of people make the mistake when the dogs aren't coming is to run towards the dog and grab them. And that's not very fun. You want to make sure you're moving away from your dog. Okay, Bubba. And moving them in towards you. It just makes it a lot more interesting and rewarding for your dog.
Awesome.
Good, good, good.
Oh, I thought I lost the train whistle for a minute. Dropping knowledge here in the train station. So I saw that someone had mentioned that that they're enjoying the free workshop, and I just saw that somewhere. Oh, Pure Husker Love. So I dropped you guys a link for our free workshop in the chat. You can check that out. We have covered a lot of this has been, you know what I love about video is
What do you love about it?
It's so information dense. There's so much that we can help you with in such a short amount of time, especially when we have an engaged audience that's like asking their great questions, and you know we get to answer some of these real life situations. A huge thank you to Todd, who bought a t-shirt, Farmer FPV, for dropping the super chat. We actually
Farmer FPV says priming the pump. He likes that.
Yeah,
he likes
that's a great line. I love it. This is we love doing these live streams for you. So this is exactly the kind of live stream we want to be able to help you out as much as possible. Next week, we're actually doing an agility stream. It's our Tuesday night after hours agility. It'll be done at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, let's say. And it's
We're just making that up right now.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm excited because if you're an agility person, we have a pretty cool announcement that we're going to make on Tuesday.
Yes, yeah, for sure. If you're into
I
agility,
haven't dropped that bomb yet.
You haven't, eh? Nobody.
No, not yet.
That's pretty exciting. So, but it's going to be on the McCann Dogs Agility channel. We've sort of put together another channel just to keep all our agility stuff in one place because we know Kayl's got a big.
You can drop a link to that in here too, so you can go find it.
Oh, I don't. It's in the description. I don't know if I have access to it, but make sure you check that out in the description of this video, and make sure you subscribe to that channel. But I'll do a quick announcement here before we go live in the agility stream.
We do some fun stuff over there.
For sure. A quick answer for Katie. How do you deal with the dog wanting walking on leash? Looks like hunting, sniffing. You use your leash. Little bumps on the leash, like we show you in some of our walking on leash videos. Just keep them moving.
Yeah, if you go back to one of the earlier demonstrations, I actually show that on the leash. So go scrub back and take a look, and you'll see.
For sure.
You'll see that.
Huge thank you to Farmer FPV dropping another super chat.
So cool.
Oh, I think that's a sticker. So we just had stickers unlocked like not that long ago. So that's a great.
What is that? A pear?
I think so.
It's a pear with like
happy,
workout outfit.
It's a happy dancing
on it.
little pear. Look at how much fun he's having.
Can other people see that or just us?
Yeah, no, everyone. Okay. I think everyone can see it in the chat. I'm not totally sure.
That's funny.
Oh, there it is. Just lit up the train station with a $2 super chat.
Amazing.
And huge thank you to all of you guys for joining us here today. We hope we answered all of your as many of your leash walking training questions as we could. Make sure you check out that video on Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Big thank you to Dan. Lots of links, the moderator, man. Luton, as well as Olivia, for helping us out here on the train station. Now, we've had some
Hopefully she
technical
brushes
issues.
her mustache before she goes to sleep.
Yes, absolutely. We've had some technical issues, but you guys didn't even notice because Dan the man is all over this helping us out. So thank you guys. If this is your first time on the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We publish new videos every single week to help you to have a well-behaved, four-legged family member. Thank you guys for joining us. When we go out, there's going to be some cards up there. You can check out some more videos. On that note, I'm Ken.
I'm Kayl.
Happy training. Bye for now, guys.